Devastation Road is a novel about an epic journey across Europe in May 1945, in the days prior and following the peace being declared in Europe at the end of World War II. It begins with the main character, Owen, waking up suddenly in a field, very much like this in fact. He wakes up, he's severely injured, he's taken a severe wound to the back of his head, he's wearing clothes that don't belong to him. He has no idea where he is or how he got there, what's happened to him. And in this state of confusion, he manages to pick himself up and tries to make his way home. He thinks initially that he's in a field near his family home in Hampshire in England. However, he quickly realises that in fact he's hundreds of miles away in a country in Europe that he knows very little about. And not only that, it's not 1941 as he thinks it is. In fact, it's 1945. He's lost several years, and the war that he has very little recollection of its beginnings is now coming to an end. As he tries to make his way home, he picks up the pieces of his story, the jigsaw, and pieces his life together. He also joins up with two companions. The first is a 15-year-old boy who speaks very little English at all, and the second is a young woman who has a young infant with her. And they both join Owen to form this unlikely trio on their journey through Europe. None of them really trust each other. However, none of them want to particularly make the journey on their own, so they stick together. As a novelist, I'm fascinated in the Second World War. My first novel, The Dynamite Room, looked at elements of the war that I had known very little about before I wrote it. So things like the Allied campaign in Norway in 1940, also Hitler's secret Brandenburg division, and the events that occurred in Germany that became the precursor to Hitler's final solution. With Devastation Road, I wanted to take another part of the war that I knew very little about initially, and that was the victory. Not the victory that we think of in terms of celebrations in, say, Trafalgar Square or Times Square, but the peace that occurred initially in the heartlands of Europe, where the main fighting had taken place. By the end of 1944, there were 11.5 million displaced people in Europe, 7.7 million of those in Germany. And it's their stories that I really wanted to investigate in the writing of Devastation Road. What happened to all the people that were in concentration camps when those camps were emptied and they joined the roads across Europe, trying to find their way home, trying to find their loved ones. The novel also looks at themes of memory. Owen has long-term memory loss, and I was fascinated in the idea that our memories are what build us. Everything that we participate in and see and experience in our lives help to create us, and what happens to us if you take those memories away. I also wanted to look at the collective memory that surround massive events like wars, how memories around those events are formed, forged, frayed, forgotten and altered. The first half of the novel is told in a rather surreal, hazy manner, and that's done on purpose, in a rather dreamlike form. I chose that because I wanted the reader to try and hopefully empathise with Owen's state of mind in the beginning parts of the novel, but to also reflect how life must have been like in Europe in those few hours, those few days after peace being declared, the chaos and the confusion that took place. The BBC war correspondent, Robert Reed, who was in Europe before peace was declared, said that there was an Alice in Wonderland kind of air, and I wanted to create that within the novel, and I hope that I've achieved that. So just as Owen wakes up in the field at the beginning of the novel, so the rest of Europe and everyday Germans in particular were waking up to the nightmare that had overrun Europe over the last 6 years. I hope that it's a story that looks at not just the cost of war, but also the cost of peace, the cost of love, and finally and ultimately the cost of redemption.